I guess I'll follow up on that, and I think just to make it more into context to our meat processors. So you mentioned typically more higher concentration of myoglobin in grass-fed cattle. In terms of color, and more specifically for those folks that have their own slaughter facility, they kill. They also have their little shop where they will display their meat. Would you expect some discoloration differences between, I mean, since having higher concentration myoglobin compared to the counterpart, would you expect discoloration, one discolor faster than the other one?
Yeah, you probably know that. You probably know that data better than I do. So if I mess this up, make sure you correct me.
Yeah,
but
I can edit it or something and we'll make sure. No worries.
Yeah, don't make me sound like a knucklehead. But you know, that's the interesting thing I've told some people, and I'll give you more information than you asked, but ultimately I'll try to answer your question. That's a little bit of an issue with locally produced livestock, because sometimes it's locally produced, which meant it's not lower quality, but it's lower input. And generally, when you're feeding cattle and you want to sell it to a small locker, right, you want to make sure you want to make as much money as possible because the margins aren't very high. Well, the biggest cost is the amount of feed you put in. So oftentimes when people sell freezer beef, now this may not be the case where you're located now, but certainly in other parts of the country, you know, they'll put them out on grass and they won't get a lot of grain, or they'll get, you know, maybe a few pounds of grain. And they'll say, oh no, they were grain finished. Well, the whole idea of the U.S. grading system back in the day was to make sure that cattle were on feed for a while, because it ensured tenderness, right? It ensured flavor, right? We know that. That's very well established. But the other problem with this is oftentimes if you don't feed these cattle, then they don't brighten up very much, because there's about 2 points difference in the L-star value, and 2 points on an L-star value, that's probably a little bit too much science, but that's an objective way to measure color, is noticeable by the human eye. So oftentimes when you go to some of these local markets, you see some beef that's been fed locally. It's pretty dark. It's not what we normally associate with cherry red beef that we find in the markets. So I think if you're selling freezer beef and you want to make sure that you get a high quality product, they really need to have been on feed for a while. Otherwise, you're going to get some organoleptic grass-fed mess. And it's okay if that's what you like. I mean, in some countries, they prefer that. In Uruguay, the stronger the flavor, the better, right?
Yeah, Brazil, Argentina, all those places.
Yeah, I mean, and the cookery method is for that. But I think for most Americans, that's a pretty strong flavor, right? Yeah. And the other thing is you got to get them on feed for a while. And I don't know what that number is. In fact, the folks in the hallways there at K-State can probably tell you, but you know, short-fed cattle, that's probably good enough, right? But you know, we're used to 150 days on feed in some cases, right?
Thank you. I think this is pretty valuable information for our folks that are listening. Have